Tractors may seem like harmless workhorses of the farm, but when things go wrong, they go really wrong. From deadly rollovers to bizarre stunt accidents, these terrifying tractor-related deaths prove that heavy machinery and human error make a lethal combo. Buckle up. These stories are anything but ordinary. In the quiet countryside of Newton County, Mississippi, tragedy arrived on a warm spring morning when the ordinary became devastating. On May 21, 2025, just after sunrise, a 55-year-old man from Chunky, Mississippi, set out for what should have been another routine day of work. Chunky is the kind of place where life moves a little slower. People know each other by name, and tractors are as common as pickup trucks. On this day, the man climbed aboard his tractor near the town of Hickory, likely planning to handle morning chores or travel a short distance along his property or local roadways. However, the familiar hum of the engine would be one of the last sounds he'd hear. At approximately 7 a.m., the Newton County Sheriff's Office received reports of a serious accident involving farm equipment. When authorities and emergency responders arrived on the scene, they discovered that the tractor had overturned, landing with devastating force. Newton County Coroner Rebecca Burton later confirmed that the man died at the scene due to injuries sustained when the tractor flipped. Details from the coroner's office revealed that the tractor rolled over in a wooded or sloped area, possibly where the ground was uneven or unstable. These are the kinds of conditions that can suddenly turn dangerous for heavy machinery. Tractors, despite their bulk, are surprisingly vulnerable to tipping, especially when traveling across inclined surfaces or making tight turns. Investigators noted that the tractor may have struck a rut or embankment before it toppled. It is not yet confirmed whether the tractor was equipped with a rollover protective structure, also known as a ROPS, which is a safety feature designed to shield the operator in such scenarios. Tragically, in this case, whatever safety measures may have been in place were not enough. The man was pinned beneath the weight of the vehicle, and by the time first responders reached the scene, there was nothing they could do to save him. The news spread quickly through the community, leaving friends, family, and neighbors in shock. In small towns like Chunky, a loss like this is not just felt by immediate relatives, it's felt by the entire community. People knew him not just as a tractor operator, but as a familiar face at church, a helper during harvest season, or a friendly neighbor always willing to lend a hand. The local authorities chose not to release his name immediately out of respect for the grieving family, a decision that underlines the closeness and compassion typical of these rural communities. As the investigation continued, safety advocates reminded the public that tractor rollovers remain one of the leading causes of death in agricultural settings. The tragic accident served as a painful reminder that even experienced operators are not immune to the hazards of farm machinery. Factors such as terrain, speed, equipment age, and lack of proper safety features all contribute to the risk. Newton County's emergency response teams, along with the Mississippi Highway Patrol, emphasized the importance of routine safety checks and the use of seat belts and rollover protection structures. These details, while technical, carry emotional weight in the wake of such a loss. They are not just safety guidelines. They are measures that could mean the difference between life and death. What began as just another morning ended in sorrow for a Mississippi family in a deeply connected rural town. Though the man's name may not appear in national headlines, his passing represents the silent dangers faced by thousands of agricultural workers across the country. It's a sobering story that highlights how easily the rhythm of daily life can be interrupted by tragedy and how important it is to value safety, community, and every single sunrise that we get to see. It was a regular Thursday afternoon out on the peaceful plains of South Dakota, birds chirping, tractors humming, and ditches being trimmed like suburban hedges before a BBQ. But somewhere southeast of Aberdeen, things took a sudden and tragic turn. Meet 74-year-old Ronald Allen Glugla, a seasoned local with enough experience on a farmall tractor to make John Deere jealous. On May 1st, 2025, Ron was out doing what he probably did every spring, mowing the ditches. The man was riding a classic red farmall with a belly mower attached, probably with a baseball cap on, minding his own business along 138th Street. Now, this wasn't a flat country road. No, sir. It was a sloped, sneaky stretch, one of those deceptive ditches that look manageable until you tilt just a little too far. Around 2:42 p.m., while working that steep incline like a pro landscaper, the tractor slipped and rolled. We're talking a full-on rollover, not just a tip, but a tragic tumble that ended up being fatal. Ron wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Maybe because in the old days, tractors didn't even have them. Unfortunately, when the machine flipped, he didn't stand a chance. Emergency crews rushed to the scene, probably expecting a routine rescue, only to find it was already too late. Ron was pronounced dead at the scene, right there on the side of the rural road he had likely driven 1,000 times before. The South Dakota Highway Patrol got on the case immediately. Their report, filed faster than a South Dakota blizzard rolls in, confirmed it was a single-vehicle crash, just the tractor, the ditch, and a heartbreaking accident. The vehicle had one job: mow grass. But on that day, gravity and slope had other plans. It's worth pointing out that tractors aren't the harmless, clunky machines they look like, especially not on slopes. They're basically 4,000-pound tipping hazards, and even with slow speeds, they can be deadly. The patrol's investigation remains ongoing, but initial findings suggest that had a seatbelt or rollover protection structure been in place or used properly, the outcome might have been different. This wasn't just a freak accident. It was an unfortunate reminder of how dangerous everyday farming tasks can be, even for experienced hands. What's truly tragic is how ordinary this scene must have looked at first. One man, one tractor, some long grass. It could have been any grandpa, any farmer, just handling business on the land. But rural roads come with their own dangers, and Ronald's death was a chilling example. Locals were stunned. Aberdeen isn't exactly a hotbed of high drama, and everyone in a 50-mile radius probably either knew Ron or knew someone who did. He was described as a community staple, a guy who'd give you advice on crops, probably wave from his tractor as he passed by. The kind of man you'd expect to live forever through sheer grit and stubbornness, and in a way he kind of will. His passing sent ripples through the farming community, reminding everyone to take tractor safety seriously. Wear that seatbelt, avoid steep ditches, respect the machine, even if you've driven it since the Nixon administration. Tractors might not have airbags or autopilot, but they've got enough torque to flip your world, literally. So let Ron's story be a heartfelt, albeit heartbreaking lesson to every rural worker out there. Whether you're 24 or 74, keep your head on a swivel and your tires on the flat, because out there in the quiet fields of South Dakota, even a humble ditch can become the final destination. The tragic death of Nishu Deshwal is one of those stories that hits hard, not just because of how sudden and shocking it was, but because of what it represents in today's social media-driven world. At just 22 years old, Nishu had made a name for himself as the Tractor Tokan King across YouTube and Instagram, gathering over 1 million followers who admired his daring stunts and larger-than-life attitude. Coming from Kurad village near Panipat, India, Nishu wasn't just another content creator. He was known in his community as a confident young man with a flair for mechanics and a love for tractors. But what started as an entertaining persona on the internet took a devastating turn in February 2024. During the filming of a tractor wheelie stunt near the Yamuna riverbank, Nishu attempted to lift the front of his tractor into the air while seated at the wheel, something he had done many times before. But this time, the terrain worked against him. The rear wheels of the tractor began to sink into the soft, unstable sand. Within moments, the heavy machine lost its balance and tipped backward with brutal force, crushing Nishu beneath the front structure and steering column. He died instantly, in front of the very friends who were recording the stunt. News of his death spread quickly, both in Panipat and online, and tributes began pouring in. But so did the difficult conversations. Why was there no safety equipment? Why perform a dangerous stunt in such an unpredictable location? And perhaps most importantly, why has online validation become so closely tied to increasingly risky behavior? For someone like Nishu, who had a 6-month-old son and a growing following, the pressure to constantly outdo his previous stunts may have felt immense. Social media, after all, rewards the extreme with bigger risks, more views, and more fame. But there's a fine line between entertainment and recklessness, and this incident crossed it in the most tragic way possible. Experts later pointed out that Nishu's tractor lacked proper rollover protection, no roll bar, no safety cage, nothing to keep the driver secure in case of a flip. And while he was experienced and skilled, the physics of heavy machinery on loose soil is a dangerous game, even for professionals. This wasn't an isolated case either. Similar fatal accidents involving tractor stunts had been reported in Punjab and other regions, prompting local governments to ban such displays at public events. Unfortunately, regulations often come too late, after lives are lost, not before. In the aftermath of Nishu's passing, many of his older stunt videos resurfaced online, gaining even more traction. Some viewers mourned his loss, while others warned against glorifying these kinds of acts. His death sparked a national conversation about safety awareness, the influence of digital fame, and the need for stricter guidelines around dangerous content. It became a moment of reflection not just for creators, but for audiences as well. Are we encouraging risky behavior by giving it so much attention? Do platforms have a responsibility to filter content that promotes unsafe actions? Nishu Deshwal's story is not just about a stunt gone wrong. It's about the fine line between talent and tragedy, the seductive pull of viral fame, and the irreplaceable cost of a young life lost too soon. It reminds us that no number of likes or views is worth dying for, and that behind every thrilling video, there's a real person with a family, a future, and a life that should never be reduced to a cautionary tale. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon in Iowa County, Wisconsin, the kind of day when the countryside feels almost timeless. The sky was clear, the breeze was light, and somewhere in the town of Eden, 71-year-old John Lee Olerity was doing something he had probably done countless times before, working on his land with a tractor. A resident of Janesville, Lee was experienced and familiar with rural life, and like many others who live off or care for the land, he trusted his equipment and knew his terrain. But even for the most seasoned operators, the land can be unpredictable. That afternoon, Lee was mowing a steep hillside, likely trying to take care of some overgrowth or keep the property in good condition, but something went wrong, terribly wrong. The tractor, likely on uneven or slippery ground, began to lose its footing. It slid down the hill, rapidly picking up momentum. Before Lee could react, the tractor overturned in a violent roll and pinned him beneath its massive weight. It was a chilling moment, the kind that freezes time. Emergency services were called immediately, and rescue teams rushed to the scene. But by the time they arrived, the damage had already been done. Lee was found underneath the tractor with no signs of life. First responders pronounced him dead at the scene. The Iowa County Sheriff's Office later released his identity and confirmed what had happened: a tragic farming accident on a quiet piece of land. This wasn't just a freak incident. It was a stark reminder of how dangerous heavy machinery can be, especially on steep or unstable ground. Tractors, while vital tools in agriculture, can become deadly in a matter of seconds. Lee's death sent ripples through the local community. Friends, neighbors, and loved ones mourned the loss of a man who had simply been doing what he loved. The sheriff's office asked for privacy for the family, and rightfully so. They were facing a sudden, heartbreaking loss that no one could have seen coming. Stories like this often go unnoticed outside of rural towns, but they matter deeply. They remind us that behind every accident is a real person, a family, a story that ended too soon. Lee Olerity wasn't just a statistic. He was someone's father, friend, maybe even a grandfather, and above all, someone who didn't deserve such a fate. His passing stands as a somber testament to the risks that come with rural labor and to the importance of safety, caution, and respect for the machines we operate. Whether mowing a lawn, baling hay, or clearing brush, the equipment we use carries great power, and when paired with treacherous terrain, the results can be devastating. Lee's story is one of quiet resilience, of doing the work that matters, and of a life remembered not for how it ended, but for the community and care that surrounded it. His legacy will live on as both a cautionary tale and a heartfelt tribute to those who toil in the fields and hills of small-town America. On a quiet summer afternoon in August 2014, a tragic and unusual accident shook the small Vermont town of Shoreham. It wasn't a high-speed chase or a fiery wreck, but something far more unexpected: a grain silo collapse that claimed the life of a hard-working truck driver just trying to finish his route. According to reports, a 56-year-old man from Benson, Vermont, was operating a tractor trailer and had backed his rig up to the silo at a farm property to deliver or load grain. These kinds of deliveries are routine in rural agricultural towns, and the man was likely no stranger to the process. But on this particular day, things went horribly wrong. As the driver maneuvered near the silo, something caused the structure to give way. Without warning, the massive metal tower full of tons of grain collapsed directly onto the cab of the truck. The force of the impact was catastrophic. The truck was crushed beneath the weight of the silo and the grain it held, leaving virtually no chance for the driver to escape or survive. Emergency crews were called immediately, and responders from local fire departments, including Middlebury, Orwell, and Shoreham, rushed to the scene. They faced a harrowing task: digging through the crumpled remains of the truck and the mountain of grain to reach the victim. Despite their best efforts, the man was pronounced dead at the scene. The incident drew attention from news outlets like Mass Live and local Vermont newspapers, largely because of how rare and devastating a silo collapse like this is. Normally, silos are sturdy, built to withstand both internal pressure from the grain and external conditions like wind or snow. But if they're old, structurally compromised, or accidentally struck by heavy equipment, they can become ticking time bombs. In this case, while the exact cause of the collapse was not immediately known, investigators suspected either a structural failure due to aging materials or potential accidental contact from the trailer while backing up. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration was reportedly notified and may have opened an investigation into the accident, though no criminal activity was suspected. The loss hit the local farming community hard. In places like Shoreham, people know their neighbors, and a tragedy like this doesn't go unnoticed. It served as a grim reminder of the dangers that come with agricultural work. Jobs that seem simple on the surface, but often involve massive, unforgiving machinery and split-second decisions. There's something deeply sobering about the idea that one misstep, one weakened bolt, or one awkward turn could lead to something so final. While there wasn't any viral footage or dramatic news segment about this specific accident, its absence from the national spotlight didn't make it any less tragic. These are the kinds of real-life incidents that happen quietly in the background, away from camera flashes and headlines, yet they speak volumes about the hidden risks of everyday labor. Moving forward, one can only hope that stricter safety checks, better silo maintenance, and increased awareness will prevent future collapses like this one. Because for all the romanticism people place on country life, red barns, golden fields, and blue skies, there's also the sobering reality that farm equipment and infrastructure can be just as deadly as any urban construction site. In this Vermont town, a single moment of structural failure turned an ordinary workday into a heartbreaking tragedy.